and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat.
They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
How is anything really calm when we talk about the Vancouver Canucks? Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network, live on another, a newsworthy day, a newsworthy week, as a lot has happened. And is this the beginning of a news dump within the next 4 weeks? I guess we'll unpack that. We say hello, Sean. How are you?
Hey, Kevin. I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's just seems to be another day and another fight amongst Canucks fans. So yes. I think I'm ready. I'm ready to just sort of try and be the voice of reason. I don't know if I can do that, but we're gonna find out, because I'm normally not that.
Well, I think we'll see. Tyler, you're a voice of reason. Or Tyler?
Oh, good start, hey? Trying to be the voice of reason, but they're making it difficult. They're making it difficult.
Well, we'll see. I think we're going to be the voice of reason here. I think as we're just going to dig right in. Of course, we go back to Saturday, Sunday, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on what happened to Bruce Boudreau. I think we all know. I think we all saw. I think everybody saw that, and I think we all agree it was not handled the most appropriate or the most professional way. I think we can all agree with that, and I don't know how much more that we need to add to that conversation. I think has already happened, and I think just from that perspective, we all agree. Bruce Boudreau, it wasn't handled perfectly. I think we're there. Okay. And it's, all the best to Bruce. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him on TV either soon or on the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised on that. Or I wonder, and I wouldn't be surprised just in terms of Bruce, if we see him in a coaching at a capital of Canada near you very soon. That's one place I would not be surprised if we see Bruce Boudreau next land up. But I think we'll see Bruce Boudreau again. That being said, the comments made in terms of what Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford were observing, and we had 2 games of the Rick Tocchet era. They dominated the Blackhawks. They got dominated by the Kraken. The things that Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford observed were not wrong. This is a very soft team. This looks like a team that is not practicing or prepared in a 60-minute effort consistently. Mm-hmm. This doesn't seem like a team that plays with a heck of a lot of structure. There's a lot of shinny. And Rick Tocchet, 2 games into his tenure, used the word soft. So as much as everyone is angry about the handling of Bruce Boudreau, I think that that's an understandable point. But the ruthless and cold, hard fact of this is the reason that this was done isn't wrong. And I think we've had this discussion as well. Like honestly, just the structure that Bruce Boudreau, it wasn't there, and you can't. What's the old saying? You can't trade 20 players. You got to use the coach as a scapegoat. But ultimately, yeah, it wasn't their guy, and you had to move on. And I think the reasons they did it, I think, are valid.
Yeah, well, the structure wasn't there. I mean, it was pretty chaotic and structureless with Travis Green before him. And yes, you got the new coach bump and some improvement and some hope there last year, buoyed by great goaltending. Well, they haven't had great goaltending this year, so now it really looks bad. And that's not blaming the goaltending. It's just the sad reality that's hard for people to accept. The team's not good enough. It's just top to bottom not good enough. You got a couple of players, that you could put the untouchable label on. Even for me, I'm reluctant to throw that on really anybody. We know JT Miller's probably going to stay with that contract and the commitment that's been made. We think Petey's the guy they're going to continue to build around. But beyond that, I mean, I was just listening to the clip of Elliot Friedman on with Tim McAuliffe today, mentioning possible names that might get, that he's hearing have a good chance of being moved off the Canucks roster. And Thatcher Demko is one of those names. He couldn't believe he's even saying that. But so, yeah, no, and people, again, individually, the core players and whatever you want to define as the core, they're likable guys, they're talents, they're people the fans really relate with. But in totality, it's not good enough. There needs to be a major shakeup. And soft is one of the problems with the makeup of this team.
It's unfortunate that Bruce Boudreau could not instill some semblance of structure within this team, because it's just from the Great White North year to where I don't think it's part of this intro, but the intro from last year where they looked like they were playing beer league for the first half of that season, and it was better this year, but it still wasn't nearly good enough. And it's the inconsistencies are rampant. And yes, the roster isn't good enough, but there was also I think there was good, solid, maybe cold-hearted reasoning to making it the coaching change. But that's only the start. And so anyone who's just said who's making the snarky remarks about, well, it looks like it wasn't the coaching that was the problem. I think if you look into it, I think, and you dive into it, you take out the snark and you take out the attitude, I think everyone knows that this is just the start. And whether or not you are confident and comfortable with the management team being able to make the moves that are needed, that's a different story and a different question. But right now, I think it's very obvious that the move to Rick Tocchet is just a start, because he's not only is he going to try and instill some structure and defensive awareness into this team, but they're also going to try and ID the players that are going to be going for part of this team going forward, not only this year, but going into next year, the year after, and longer, because that's what you need to be doing. It's not just, this is no longer a year-to-year process from what I'm seeing. I know other people are disagreeing with that, but from what I'm seeing, this is no longer a year-to-year process, because I think there are going to be some big, tough decisions going to be made at the deadline, and then going into this summer as well.
And you said something in that sentence that I think is very interesting, Sean. And you used the word well, you didn't use it in the way that I'm about to use it, but you used the word ID. This team has not had an identity since I've moved here from Calgary, since at least 2014. It's been a rudderless ship with no vision, and I don't know what type of hockey that they are trying to play, but I can't identify, like, I watch other teams. The Philadelphia, I was watching, had a chance today to do some flipping here for the early games, was watching the Philadelphia Flyers and Minnesota Wild. And 3 fights within 15 seconds. And I'm not talking about the Canucks need to fight more, but at least with the Flyers, they're not a good hockey team, but you know the type of style that they're going to play. The Wild, questionable where they're at right now. We can have a debate for another time, but they have an identity. The Buffalo Sabres, you watch them play, there's an identity with them. You kind of understand what you're getting with. With this Canucks team, I don't see that. And I think that is what Rick Tocchet and what Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, Rick Tocchet want to start to bring with this team. And it's that identity and just what is it to mean to be a Vancouver Canuck? And, there's been so much talk around this idea of rebuild, all the rewords, and as Devin said, the refuck. We haven't had the conversation about what type of team are we building here in Vancouver. Like everyone talks about, okay, and we'll get into this in a second here. Okay, if you want to trade Andrei Kuzmenko for assets, what type of asset do you want? Do you just want an asset, or is there a specific type of player that you're looking for? If you're trading Bo Horvat, what type of, are you just hoping that you just unload a box of chips and they're all blue? What type of players are you looking for? We had this conversation with JT Miller. What type of prospect, what type of player, what is the type of player that you want to play in this? It's not just picking up. It's not just. I think some people think that this is fantasy. So
that's a good point. Yeah, here I want to interrupt you because what you haven't mentioned there is draft picks, and for a lot of fans, all they're interested in hearing about are draft picks. Like you have to have players. They can't put nothing out on the ice. So then it does come to your question, Kevin. What kind of players do you want to have?
And what's funny about the first example of a team with an ID, and I tentatively agree. I agree with you, at least at this where the Canucks are at this point. I don't think they have they know what their identity is.
I agree with that too.
But who are the Philadelphia Flyers tied with for most fighting majors in the NHL this season? The Vancouver Canucks. So, but yeah, I think I do think that they are trying to identify players that they can build the identity that they're looking for. And I think they're looking for detail-oriented players who know that offense comes from defense, players who know that if you take care of your own zone, the offense is going to come eventually. And you're seeing that with how they're handling Podkolzin, how they're handling Höglander, how they aren't rushing up Linus Karlsson, how they are still marinating Jack Rathbone in the AHL as well. Because Rathbone is an NHL caliber skater. He does have some good offensive ability, but he needs to learn the defensive side of the game. And both those younger players in the Höglander and Podkolzin need to learn that as well. And those guys have both put up double-digit goal totals in a regular season in the NHL. So they are looking at, and that's why, again, I don't think this is a year-to-year process anymore, because if it was, then Höglander and Podkolzin would probably have been shipped off for more assets or different players, or they'd still be up in the NHL trying to learn at that level, as opposed to taking a step back and doing it at the AHL level.
Mm-hmm. I'm with Sean as well. This is not about next year. It's really more about maybe 2 to 3 seasons from now, and trying to sort of work on establishing some new identity, new core, the words that we're throwing out here. But can we be certain of that? It's just the way it's been with this organization under this ownership. Let's hope so. I think that it's pretty easy to see that if you're going to have your president of hockey operations referring to major surgery to the roster, and then there's credible speculation out there from guys like the Elliot Friedmans of the world wondering about some pretty significant names being moved before the trade deadline, then this isn't going to be about next year. This is going to be about constructing for over the course of multiple years. And if that's not the full tear it down, blow it up, rebuild that fans are looking for, it's at least a move more in that direction and less towards trying to plug holes on a year-to-year basis, hoping to keep trying to push into that playoff picture.
Yeah, and I mean, they're just just to touch on LV, that just quickly, it certainly feels like I don't like in terms of his personality, he hasn't been able to show a lot of it yet, but I have a hunch there's going to be a bit of a ruthlessness to this, and I think that there's going to be some hard decisions that have to be made, and I think they've said that they're not going to be popular. We'll get into one of them. Decision was made today, and yeah. So I just, in terms of I agree with you guys. I don't think this is about. I think that this is the direction that it feels like they are going. Is the way that fans are clamoring. Some of the fans have been clamoring on Twitter. And I know that what it looks like right now, because I think often there's a very short-sightedness, but I think now when we get into the signing of Andrei Kuzmenko, I think I want to unpack this a little bit, because I think I saw some things that I don't have the bandwidth to sit on Twitter and start arguing with everybody on a lot of things.
Just a couple of people.
Well, it's, you know what? We're going to break it down here, but some of the takes today were a little bizarre to me. I'm not going to lie. And just, I guess maybe we'll start there. Andrei Kuzmenko, 2 years, 5.5. Maybe we'll start getting enough about me. What do you guys think about the signing here?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like they have to sell something. They can't just sell nothing for next year. They got to sell something. And right now, the most kind of attractive thing to sell with this team, even prior to changing coaches, was Andrei Kuzmenko. So, and anybody that's been to a game, and I've been to a game this year, I mean, and he scored. I mean, the guy's electrifying. He's fun. He looks like there's a lot of potential there, and they were able to get this deal done fairly easily, it seems like. So it's a sign that he really wants to be in Vancouver, and that they needed something positive. And I know, again, that's short-sighted, and really that you're looking beyond the next 2 years. But you can't just throw out an AHL roster. If people think that's going to happen, it's just not going to happen. There is the institutional aversion to doing that from this. That's the term I've used. Even if ownership is willing to take a longer view and accept not being in the playoffs realistically for another 2 to 3 seasons, they still have to put something credible out there, especially if they're going to start moving around some other big names. So, I mean, what do people expect? Just don't sign anybody, just acquire draft picks and have plugs out there for the whole season next year? I mean, that's not going to happen. So I like the signing.
That's not a successful model, in my opinion, either.
No, it's not creating a winning environment.
Yeah.
It's saying to your fans and sponsors that you don't care, and they're not going to do that.
Yeah, just ask Tim Murray how that goes.
Exactly.
Like, Buffalo did everything they could to tank for Connor McDavid, didn't get him, got Jack Eichel, and finally looking like they've got a bit of a future here.
Yeah.
And that's 7
how many years
ago.
down the road?
7, 8 years.
7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah. So it's Chicago's trying to do it. I don't think that's going to work out well for them. When you're trading away players like Alex DeBrincat and Kirby Dach, who are good young players that you can build around.
Yeah.
I think it's. I really like the signing. I would have liked one more year, personally, but I'm not going to quibble over that.
Yeah.
And there's still a chance that he'll sign another 2, 3, 4, another deal after that, depending on where he's at, where the Canucks are at, and where the cap is at. There's still that potential.
And the other thing is too, people are saying, well, it's either you're signing him and making a commitment, or they could have traded him for assets that longer term it might be more beneficial to the organization. Well, he doesn't have a full no trade protection. There's a 12 team, I think, no trade list. So there is the possibility to make a change in this regard down the road. And that's kind of being overlooked in all the discussion. That's why, can't put too much into the Twitter discussion. I mean, yes, it is something that we can find and it's measurable, and there's real people. We know the passionate fans amongst the Canucks Twitter circle. However, people are in a very frustrated, agitated state right now. So some of the takes are going to be a little irrational, and that's just part of sports fandom when your team's not doing well.
Yeah, the way I looked at the Kuzmenko signing is that, yes, there are a lot of reasons to shit on the Canucks right now. The Kuzmenko signing isn't one of them. Do those other reasons affect the Kuzmenko signing? Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Are there other places?
What do you mean by that? Sorry, can you clarify what you mean by that? Sorry, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
What in terms of the all the other issues sort of affecting the Kuzmenko signing?
Yeah, are you saying that like this is part of the problem? Is this there's a negative vibe around the Canucks, so this is being looked at negatively, or are you saying?
I think that is part of it, but it's also the want for the major surgery, the want for the to see players go out and younger assets and draft picks come in, and to see a major change within the core of this team. And we still have not seen that under this management team, and we're just over a year in since Patrick Allvin was announced as the GM of the Vancouver Canucks, and just a little bit more than a year, a little bit more, like 13 months since Rutherford took over. So, because all we've seen so far is, they traded Hominick, brought in Dermott, traded Mott. They added in the offseason. They didn't make any trades, moving out players, but that's coming. I think there's an impatience here that I think is understandable, based off of where this team is and the whole previous regime and how you look at. I think we'll just say that, you look at who the Canucks played in the 2011 final, the Boston Bruins, and they're still rolling along, making the playoffs. I think all the years since then. Made it to a 2-cup final since then, and they're looking like a one hell of a team this year. Mm-hmm. And the Canucks are this middling team that hasn't just, again, no identity, no sort of direction. So I think it's a fair criticism, but but if you take that out and say, okay, where is this team going? And you know that we're, I would say, 90% certain that Bo Horvat's being traded. And then the other thing is the logjam on the wing too. I think that's part of it as well. You've got Brock Besser making 6.6. You've got for the next 2 years after this. I think that's the deal. And then you've got Connor Garland making 4.5 for another 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, so you got Besser 6.6. You got Connor Garland at 4.9 for 23 to 26. Yeah,
you've got that, and I think it's you look at that, and I can understand that the frustration with that log jam of higher priced wingers. And you have the right side of the defense that needs fixing. You need, just the whole defense needing fixing. You need depth. You need maybe some better depth as well. So I can understand why there's that frustration, but I just think you have to separate that out. I think this is a good signing short term, and it doesn't mean that they can't add those assets later on. Say it does take 3 years for them to become a more competitive team, and they are still potentially sellers in 2 years' time. They can still sell what is he turning? He'll be like a 29-year-old Andrei Kuzmenko at the deadline. for a good return. And at that point, I think the cap's going to be a lot will be higher, and there'll be more teams that aren't so cap strapped, and then the return actually I think will probably be better.
That was my thought on that too. Sorry, it's just because that's I tweeted that. I said I don't think that people, the everyone that wanted that trade for Kuzmenko, I don't think you would have gotten what people you wouldn't have gotten what you think you would have gotten for Kuzmenko, especially at this trade deadline with the names out there right now. Like I would have been loath to give if I'm another GM. I don't think I would have given a first round pick for Andrei Kuzmenko. Even if it was late, this as a UFA, yeah, he scored 20 goals. This is his first season in the National Hockey League, and I'm approaching playoff time. I am loath to give up a first round pick for that. I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I'm
But
with you, Kevin. I mean, he's relatively unproven in the NHL, right? Like, and that's typical thinking of a lot of people today is they don't care about being proven; they're about the here and now. And if you look at it in the here and now, then yeah, there's a trade to be made, and you start thinking about what the return might be. But I'm with you. I mean, that's looking at it from the Canucks perspective and the perspective of people out here. I mean, if you look around the league, is Andrei Kuzmenko really that big on people's radar? I don't know, right?
yeah, no.
I don't
I
think
think
so.
he probably would have returned like a second and a prospect, and it'd probably be a B-level prospect. So I don't like that's an okay return, but it's not the landfall that I think a lot of fans and were hoping, and some of the media were trying to sell the fan base on.
I mean, any kind of trade they make at this point, Kevin, is going to underwhelm the fans. I whether it's Horvat involved or who's involved in the trade, people are going to be
Yeah,
underwhelmed. I mean, if you get a bunch of draft picks, then you might end up taking on as Thomas Drance likes to say, inefficient contract with those picks or those prospects. There's going to be some downside to whatever trade they end up making, or trades, I should say. It'll be probably, I'm certain it'll be more than one. So that's just one of those things that you kind of have to just shrug off with fan reactions. The people are going to be underwhelmed. It's the nature of the position that the Canucks are in.
yeah, and I guess to me, yeah, I just don't think that Kuzmenko was the most valuable trade chip on this roster. That's still Bo Horvat.
Yeah.
No matter if you would have signed an unsigned Kuzmenko is not your best trade chip. I'm sorry, I have to push back on that. That is ridiculous. That you're telling me that a guy that scored 20 goals once in the National Hockey League, that you truly, truly believe that GMs are dumb enough to give a first round pick for that? Stop. Like, just stop it. Bo Horvat is ultimately the best trade chip that the Canucks have. And ultimately, signing Andrei Kuzmenko at this point, and he goes back to back. I'm with Sean. He goes back to back 20 goal seasons. There's a potential trade chip. There's a lot more there. That is, it's kind of sort of in the Thomas Vanek conversation, and Thomas Vanek got the Canucks Tyler Mott. I think we can agree Tyler Mott was a pretty effective Vancouver Canuck, not a superstar, but a guy that the Rangers they ended up trading for another asset, now in Ottawa as well. But Tyler Mott was not a bad pickup, although even that trade, people were underwhelmed at it at the time. But I think
you're getting more than just a Tyler Mott in return for Kuzmenko if he's coming off of 20 goal seasons, 30 goal in there, and whatever he's doing in that season, in that current season as well.
Yeah, so exactly, but because it's a tradable contract ultimately. So 12-team no trade. I mean, I know that some people may not like it, but it gets the player right, and he negotiated that.
And honestly, there would probably be a handful of teams that would be looking at him at that point anyways.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to what I said earlier too. I mean, part of the signing of him in particular right now, and perhaps the timing of it being this quick here has something to do with trying to turned the channel on on all the negative press that they've been getting lately, and this is something that the organization was at least hoping would come out as a positively spun news item. But for next year, and I talked about this on our last show about season ticket renewals. You gotta have, they will be looking at it as an organization as something to sell to the fans next year. I'm surely there's going to be a softening of the season ticket renewals. Well, at least this helps get some more people in the building, and he is exciting to watch.
He's exciting. He's very he's enthusiastic. He just oozes charisma.
Yeah.
Like it's just
and if you're not selling hopes of a championship or even making the playoffs, selling an exciting young player like him is something they can offer.
Yeah. And also when going back to like the best trade chip, who's the best trade, like realistic trade chip on the block for the whole NHL right now?
Bo Horvat.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm looking at it, like maybe there's some. I'm just looking at forwards right now, and it's literally Bo Horvat. Like Pasternak's going to re-sign in Boston. I think we all know that. Plus, they're going for it.
Yeah.
Larkin, I'm not sure what's going on there, but I think that Detroit's going to probably want to re-sign him. Krejci, Bergeron, Boston's going for it. Kaloran, Tampa's going for it. Domi,
he wants to stay in Chicago. He's been very public about that.
Okay. Michael Bunting, Toronto's going for it. Patrick Kane, that's a name there that could potentially, but he's 34. How much more does he have to give type deal? And he's not the same Patrick Kane as we know for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Jonathan Toews, because he's on that list as well. Tarasenko's not the same player. Ryan O'Reilly's coming up is not the same player. Both those players have had injury concerns this year. Like it's the Bo Horvat, if he's not the top, the player that's going to garner the most interest, he's pretty damn close.
Yeah, So, and just in terms of wingers, they don't. Like, I think Kane versus Kuzmenko. Kane has a cup. I think that a lot of teams will be just a little bit more interested in seeing if Kane has how much more he has in that gas tank for a playoff run. But
and he is Patrick Kane, right?
And he is Patrick Kane. Yeah. I don't see this as a trade chip. And then the other argument that has been coming forward here with the Canucks is the amount of money that they've spent on the wing. So you've got Besser, we've already talked about this, 6.6. You've got Connor Garland at 4.5. And then you've got 4.9. Okay. So there's a pretty
Mikheyev at 4.7.
At 4.7. Okay. So I think they're going to keep Mikheyev. I don't think he's going anywhere. But Besser, I think there's a chance he's gone at the trade deadline. So that's 6.6 that I think we'll be moving on from. Garland, I don't know if he's gone at the trade deadline. I have a theory that some people may think is ridiculous, but I don't see Connor Garland back next year either way at 4.9. So let's look at after that. You have Mikheyev at 4. Kuzmenko at 5. You have Dakota Joshua, by the way, at 8.25. Depending on where you play Studnicka, he's at 7.62 next year. You've got Lane Peterson, who is making 7.50. You're probably signing him, but it's going to be a pretty low there. You've got Höglander, who's an RFA, who I don't think it's not going to be a huge contract. And then you've got Podkolzin. So in my mind, this is where I'm seeing this going. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Besser out, Connor Garland out, and we don't know what's going to happen with Tanner Pearson next year, but we know he's done for this year, and we don't know what's happening next year. You have there's a potential for this winger group to be younger, cheaper, and a hell of a lot harder to play against. Because I think Kuzmenko, he's exciting, and he's starting to get to get into those difficult areas to get the goals. I mean, what was the one against Edmonton? He gets right in front there. He's showing more willingness to do that. That it becomes a younger, cheaper winger group next year if Besser is out and Garland is out. So
and that's all that has to happen to kind of get this thing turned around. You need to free up some cap space somewhere.
Exactly. So, the winger, they've spent so much money on winger argument. It holds a half a cup of water on for me, but it doesn't hold. It's not the full picture when you actually look at the winger salary under Besser, Garland, and Mikheyev. It's expensive, but after that, it's actually not bad. So
this is the whole, go ahead, Sean.
I think that's the tough part, though. Like, they have to find a way to move at least one of Besser and Garland to open up the cap space flexibility that they're looking for. I think there's going to be there might be another big, like, one of the Friedman said that he thinks Tyler Myers might be gone. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a buyout this summer from the Canucks, and the big candidate for me is OEL. And if those guys go and you move one of Besser or Garland, there's a lot of cap flexibility there, depending on what return you get, as well as what return you get from Myers and then one of those wingers.
Who's your second buyout option, though? Other than after OEL, who would be your second one?
I haven't looked at who's got good buyout options there.
And the reason I'm asking is because if Ethan Bear files for arbitration, you do have yet another buyout window. So I could see OEL being bought out, but I could also see if there's arb rights, there's another one there, and I could see them if Myers is gone. I could see them having a long look at Garland, because I don't know what you would get for him on the trade market.
The term is still a challenge with Garland, but it's under $5 million a season. I don't know if that's that difficult to move. I do wonder with Tyler Myers at 32 and another season still to go on his contract, whether they would eat the final year there and take that approach, especially if there's no interest in OEL. And that is a very long commitment to paying OEL to not play for you. He is buyout candidate number one in terms of, unmovable contract and quality of his play and trying to move on from him. But I don't know if I see that one happening this offseason. That maybe after next season.
They save over $8 million on the cap. If they buy OEL out this summer, they would save over $8 million on the cap from the 23-24 season, just over 5.5 on the season after that. And then for the final 2 years of what his contract would have been, that'd be just over 2.8 savings. And then it'd be just over 2.4 for 4 years after that of dead cap.
Yeah. I mean, so if you wait one more year, you get more favorable terms on that buyout there. Because what are they using the $8 million in savings for next year? To make the playoffs? It doesn't look like it. This be that way. Not if we're rebuilding. Not if we're rebuilding and the fans are getting the full tear it down rebuild that they're looking for. This is where the P word comes in, right? Like there has to be patience. It will take a long time, and we're already seeing signs today that people are having trouble wrapping their heads around that.
Yeah, if they wait till the summer of 2024 to buy out OEL, they get a cap savings of 5.9 that season, just under 3.2 for 2 seasons after that, and then just over $2 million for 3 years after that.
See, that sounds a lot more likely to me for them to want to accept than doing it after this season.
And Myers is not a buyout candidate in terms of what they would save on the cap. They're actually better off burying him in the minors.
There you go. Yeah, and then again for next year, if you're going to ship a bunch of NHL experience out at the trade deadline and in the offseason this year, then OEL, although majorly overpaid and not what he used to be, still somebody that can fill a spot on defense next year as this rebuild unfolds.
And to
Well, I mean,
entertain,
I'm just going to say it, rebuild. Never mind this refurbish, reconfigured that we laugh about. It's happening. Rebuilding, it's happening.
and to entertain Kevin's Garland idea, let's see here. Let's get that back to, if they buy Garland out this year, they save just over 4.1 on the cap for 2 years, just over 3.1 for the third year, and then they would have just under 1.9 in dead cap space for 3 years after that. And then that's the thing. You're like, when you deal with a buyout, you're always going to have a decent dead cap space for like 2-3 years as long as you're not buying out like the last year. And a lot of these deals are kind of buyout proof in that last year now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I guess the other question is, I've been reading that there's a possibility of cap recapture for Kuzmenko because of the amount of goals he has.
In terms of no, it's not cap recapture, Kev. It's bonuses.
Oh, okay.
It's just he's on an ELC, so he has bonuses. So if the Canucks can't, that's the thing about being an LTIR, is if your players on your entry level deals hit their bonuses, they have to get put to the next year. So, like, the Canucks don't have, like, the Canucks next year. Yeah, it all depends. Like, I don't think it's going to matter too much for them, honestly. The Kuzmenko bonuses, if they get everything done that they want to get done, or even most of it done.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. But I think just, I guess ultimately where my conclusion is this is just one domino or one piece to a pretty complex puzzle that I think overall I would rather evaluate what happens after this than just as isolate this as one thing and then everybody's done, right? Oh, well, Kuzmenko's been signed. He's not going to be traded. We're done. This organization's hooped again. I mean, let's just see what happens here. I mean, we've got a month or so of the trade deadline, and I'm more than 90%. I'm in the 97% that Bo Horvat is going to be traded. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. And I think that's the valuable trade piece. And I mean, between Besser and Garland, my thought process, although he makes more money, I would think Brock Besser would catch a bigger return than Connor Garland.
Shorter term, I think he's played better than Garland at this season. Bigger frame.
Yeah. So okay. And then Luke Shen, we're not expecting the world for Luke Shen, but that's a reasonable expectation that he'll be traded. So I don't know. Am I wrong in saying let's just wait and see where the pieces fall?
Yeah, I've said this for most of the season. Like, I won't say most of the season. I would say for the past month. And when the whole Boudreaux thing went down and everyone's panicking and all this, I'm like, wait till the deadline. Wait till where we're at after the deadline and see what moves they've made. And if they've moved Horvat, looks like Shen's on the way out. Maybe they can find a way to move someone else, or if they can get those two done and get decent assets back for that, and then finish off the business with Myers and maybe one of the wingers in the offseason when cap flexibility is a little bit easier to work with. I think you're going to get a much better idea on what this management team's trying to do at the deadline and into the summer, and instead of just freaking out with every decision that's made.
Can we just touch on 2 more players here?
Sure.
I would think that just in terms of, Friedman mentioned Thatcher Demko. I would think that that's more of an off-season move, first of all. I think trying to get him healthy, 1. 2, it really sounds like Rick Tocchet, one of the other things that Rick Tocchet has voiced is he's going to rely a lot on Ian Clark on who should be starting and who shouldn't. And I would think that Ian Clark is going to have some say on whether you're trading Demko or not. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think-
ultimately GM and ownership, but
I think with that, Kev, I think that's more. Yeah, I think that's more of an off-season move, and I
Yeah.
think it's something that is going to have to be the exact right deal and a windfall, like King's ransom type return, because that's something you can't give up for cheap. Look at some of these teams that are trying to find goaltending. It took Colorado years to figure out their goaltending, and then they had to let Kemper go. You've got Carolina's been rotating goaltenders, and it's cost them. LA struggled to have goaltenders this year. It's just if you have one, I think it's something you hold on to unless you get a King's ransom. So I think they're just honestly, I think they're just looking and seeing what's out there.
Yeah.
They're doing due diligence.
Mm-hmm. Everything has to be on the table if this is truly going to be, a reset, whatever for the franchise.
Well, and the other thing is Florida and Pittsburgh played last night, and they both had an e-bug as a backup. So, you need 2 goalies. I'm gonna keep pounding that to even Flame fans. You need 2 goalies. You can't run with Vladar. You can't run with Markstrom. You need 2 goalies. In Vancouver, you need 2 goalies. Edmonton, you need 2 goalies. Like, it's just that's the way it is.
Right now, the Canucks have like 2 half goalies combining for 1, basically at this point. With all due respect to Colin Delia and Spencer Martin, but neither are an NHL number 1.
No,
and it shows,
And
right?
yeah, and that's why I'm a little hesitant in believing that they're going to let Demko go. I think it would have to be a massive haul, and I think a lot has to play into that.
Yeah.
I
mean, maybe there's some interest out there in Demko getting him for cheap, right? The way it's gone this year. I don't know, but I mean, his full body of work is probably pretty impressive to a lot of general managers out there. If you kind of look past just what's gone on this year.
Generally, though, trading goaltenders at the trade deadline hasn't actually worked out. Really,
no.
Like it's a
goaltending
bit of
has a lot more to do with the system in front of them and making sure that their style and meshes with that. Nowadays, so yeah, I don't expect to see anything of that until the summer. And even then, I'm skeptical because I think you need to be. You can't give that up for cheap.
Yeah. And then I guess the other person I just wanted, because Tyler, you've kind of said some things about Quinn Hughes, and I'm sort of kind of curious where you're at with Quinn Hughes, because we the talk was, there was talk that a few weeks ago from Friedman that Hughes is not an untouchable, and I kind of got the sense from you a couple of weeks ago that you were a little. I don't know. You were a little. I won't say wary, but it didn't sound like you were as high as others have been on Quinn Hughes. Or am I?
I'm not. I mean, for a while there was the discussion, of him and Cale Makar, and who's truly that most exciting dynamic young defenseman in the NHL. Well, I think it's pretty clear now that Hughes is, decidedly below Makar in that discussion. And I don't know. I'm just feeling underwhelmed by Quinn Hughes. He's decent, but he's not this superstar defenseman that it kind of seemed like he might be when he first came in. And
I think part of that
he's not
is
untouchable.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's untouchable, but again, it's one of those King's ransom type returns that they'd have to get for him. And I think a lot of the thing, I think Makar's better than we ever thought, and A and B, I think a lot of what we're seeing with Hughes is because of the lack of structure in the game. And I think if the team has better structure, he's gonna thrive a lot more than he is right now.
I guess we should tip our cap to Chris Tanev helping him look pretty good there in those early years when they were playing together.
But even then, it was like you still saw the same issues that you're seeing now.
Yeah.
And Luke Schen's done an admirable job as his pair there, but it's more than just the defense partner there. It's the whole team structure, because I think Hughes knows what to expect from his forwards. And so he's double clutching, not knowing what to do with the puck, not able to make the easy pass. So I remember when he first came into the NHL, he was actually able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to make the easy pass, which opened up a lot more of the long passes and him being able to skate up the ice and transport the puck up the ice that way. But it's, for me, I think it's a lot of what we're seeing from Hughes, or the lack of progression, and the holes in his game. I think a lot of that comes down to the lack of structure and consistency with the Canucks team as a whole.
Point for me, Kevin, is that if there's a trade to be made involving Quinn Hughes that nets you a decent return, he's not a player that I think is an absolute must keep. And I would have had a different opinion on that a couple of years ago.
I am really going to be fascinated, though, what Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar do for Quinn Hughes. Like, in terms of just that type of knowledge for Quinn Hughes, I think is going to be massive. And I don't think it was not a coincidence that they brought two defensemen back with Tocchet selected two defensemen. I mean, I think both of them are I think that defense has been something that this organization has been. It's been a weaker point over the years for sure.
Yeah.
And I kind of think like Moritz Seider has the ear of Nicholas Lidstrom. Quinn Hughes having the ear of Sergei Gonchar, I don't think that hurts him at all. I would be very, very careful trading Quinn Hughes. I look at Rasmus Dahlin. He stumbled out of the gate, but look at him now. Mm-hmm. I would be very loath to give up on Quinn Hughes.
Hey, Joe, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these fans that wants to run people out of town when I'm irrational.
No, I know you're not.
Teams playing, right? But the idea that if we're going to talk about a rebuild, and then we're going to talk about like who's staying and who's going and might be untouchable. I mean, to me, Quinn Hughes is not in the untouchable category. Really, for me, the only one right now I think is Petey.
And I can understand that, and that's why I said it's more of a King's ransom type return that you'd be looking for if you're even remotely...
And I think that there is a market out there for Hughes to get you something close to that anyway.
So I think he's on the other thing with Quinn Hughes is I think he's on a deal that he can bring value and outperform that cap hit for years. Because he signed for at 7.85 for another 4 years after this season.
Yeah.
And if you can get that consistency and structure within the team, I think he's going to be worth a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, us, we're Tanevologists, so praise be thy Tanev, first of all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just it would be we'll see. I guess I was genuinely curious. I wanted to have that conversation when I heard that a couple of weeks. I'm like, that was interesting. I'm kind of curious about where you were at with that. But
Yeah.
I guess, is there anything else with the Canucks that we need to unpack? Did I miss anything?
Well, I was just going to comment briefly on the assistant coaches. I mean, that's pretty high credibility names there, in Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar. So, the fans are cynical and salty and impatient and ornery, whatever words you want to use, go through the dictionary. It's a trying time right now to sell anything to the fan base. But I like those. Rick Tocchet, and whether he's the right guy for this team and this market, that's there's a more worthy debate there. But I don't think you can go wrong with those other two guys as assistant coaches. Those are high credibility acquisitions there, and and then as far as the choice of Tocchet as a coach, and a lot of people are pointing out to his track record as a coach in the past. Well, I mean, he didn't have great teams in the past either. I know he's a little older, a little wiser, seen some more hockey. I mean, it's either you're going with this, or do you want to take a chance on somebody with no NHL experience? I mean, the last couple of times the Canucks have done that hasn't panned out. If you decided Bruce Boudreau is not your guy, you got to go with somebody. And whether fans like it or not, and the whole old boys club thing, I mean, in this kind of a job and that type of relationship, between a coach and management, you're going to hire the people you know and trust, and where what you're getting. And clearly that's a big reason why Rick Tocchet was hired, and that's because he's pretty tight with Jim Rutherford, and they're on the same page, or at least I think they are.
Yeah, and they're bringing in their guy who they have some trust in, that's going to try and put together I'm saying the same words over and over here, being a bit of a parrot like a lot of people on Twitter. We're going to say their structure and defensive awareness, and consistency. Like that's what they're looking for from wanting from Tocchet, Foote, and Gonchar. And Gonchar is the key one for me. Mm-hmm. Not only for Quinn Hughes, you've got Jack Rathbone, Ethan Bear. All those guys are good skating defensemen who are going to be, who need to learn how not only to use their skating offensive wise, but also defensively. Because Sergei Gonchar was never an overly physical defenseman, but he was good enough defensively to be a very good defenseman in the NHL.
He provided stability back there, and the Canucks are so badly in need of stability, right? That's the Canucks have not had that since Chris Tanev. For all the other things and all the chaos and all the flaws in the Canucks games that existed towards the end of the Tanev era, you could count on Chris Tanev to provide stability. And that's very important with defense, and it's often overlooked, when you start talking about other players and other statistics and all the kind of stuff that goes on off the ice with pro sports teams. Stability on the back end, man. If you don't have it, your team has no chance.
Yeah. And the thing with Cale Makar, just to touch on this a little bit, that's no coincidence that Cale Makar shot up when Devon Toews showed up as his defense partner. No, I don't think that is coincidence that guy took another step because of that. And then I think without Chris Tanev, I don't think Quinn Hughes Quinn Hughes has been fine, but he hasn't been able to take, for the reasons mentioned. I think that is, that defense partner is important. And Peter Labardia said this a couple of days ago. If 4 good defensemen are more important to win than 6 good forwards, I would rather have 4 good if I had to choose, I choose 4 defensemen over 6 forwards. I believe that would get me a Stanley Cup. That will win me a cup over 6 forwards. And you can disagree with, some people may disagree with that, but I'm firmly on the side that you need a damn good defense to win championships.
I mean, aren't the Canucks just the perfect example of that? I'd say they have 6 good forwards, but they don't have 4 good defensemen.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, Kevin. And yet there seems to be all this talk about other things that kind of clouds that sometimes.
And And the other thing is Tocchet talked about the details. It's funny because everybody looks at the Oilers and well, it's all this offense. Jay and all this talk about young players and especially in Calgary with the whole controversy around play or not play Jacob Pelche. Jay Woodcroft was asked about Dylan Holloway. And it was today. And do you know what Jay Woodcroft said? This is this young, hip, progressive coach that I think a lot of people got enamored with. It's interesting when Holloway started to pay attention to the details that his ice time went up. So even the young progressive coach is talking about the details in the game and how they are important. So you can graph me. You can talk about asset management, which, by the way, I'm starting that word those words rile me a little bit. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of them. You can talk about all of that. It's still about the details in the game and how you play on the ice for me. And the bottom line, I think to simplify it, the Canucks need that structure in order to be successful. And
Yes.
no matter where they're at, no matter what you think of what they need to do, that has to be the foundation that they build the house on.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess just moving from the Canucks, the one other topic that stirred the pot, Gary Bettman stirred the pot again this week, shockingly.
Yeah.
Talking about tanking, and he said that teams don't tank. He said that I'm going to find the exact quote. He said, nobody tanks. He said, and I'm going to find the whole quote here. Nobody tanks because we have a weighted lottery. You're not going to lose games to increase your odd by a couple of percentage points. That's silly. And frankly, suggesting tanking, I believe, is inconsistent with the professionalism that our players and coaches have.
Well, Gary, if teams don't tank, why do you need a lottery? That's really my question. Okay, the answer is obvious. It's a deterrent. Teams. He's technically correct, right? Like, there's nobody out there stating in any kind of formal fashion on paper or in the press saying, "Oh yeah, we're deliberately losing." But there's systematic ways in which you can, constructively ensure some losses down the stretch to secure a certain percentage of drafting first overall. I don't know. That's just, he uses the word silly. I think he was probably asked this question. I'm sure he didn't go out of his way to talk about it, but it's you're not fooling anyone with that one there, Gary.
Well, I think he's right, but he's wrong. I think he's right that the players and coaches don't tank, but the GMs definitely put teams out there that are designed to finish as low in the standings as possible. Case in point, the Chicago Blackhawks this year. Case in point, the Buffalo Sabres when they tried to get McDavid.
That one was one where there was a comment made on the record. And that was after the draft lottery was completed and they didn't win. And it was known that Connor McDavid would be going to Edmonton. Tim Murray, at the time, the general manager, come out and reacted by saying, "I'm disappointed for our fans." And he looked crushed. And we've seen the other faces at, when they've done the big television spectacle there in Toronto. And, Trevor Linden looked like, somebody, like kicked his dog. And there was Joe Sakic looking like he was going to kill somebody after they didn't win the draft lottery and they fell in the order as well. So this idea, like, that they, I guess it's a bit of a semantics thing. No, technically they don't tank. They're not, in any kind of formalized way deliberately putting out a losing lineup or strategizing in some fashion to lose games, but they all understand, the what's at stake with the draft position and the percentages with the draft lottery. So I don't know. Is disingenuous the word? I'm not sure if that's the right word, but for him to say that is come on, Gary. I know you have to say that, but for the sophisticated fan, you're just kind of insulting that he would say that.
Right now, Chicago's doing a piss poor job at tanking tonight. They're beating the Flames.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's just it again. It's tank is one of those another one of those subjective terms, and how a person defines that term is different. Because I got in this argument, friend of the show, Graham Oseman, and he said we had a very different idea on what tanking was. Because he said that the Rangers tanked. I'm like, no, they didn't. Like when they won the lottery and picked second overall and got Capo Caco, they finished with more points than the Vancouver Canucks, and they were in the middle of the freaking league.
Yeah.
Like they finished like it was that's not a tank.
Yeah. No.
To me.
No, and then even when the famous, I mean, it's amazing how this stood the test of time. But the famous letter that went out to season ticket holders with New York Ranger fans, it was a way of explaining to the fans that we are, I'm just not their words, but basically we're stepping back. We're going to need some patience from you as a season ticket holder before the team becomes truly competitive again. Trying to ask the fans for some patience, but nowhere in there is it saying, "Oh yeah, we're deliberately losing this season," right? So.
It only took them 2 years to go
defined in all kinds of different ways, I suppose.
And it only took the Rangers 2 years to go off and spend a shit ton of money on Artemi Panarin.
Well,
after that,
yeah. I think there are teams that do, and I don't believe that tanking works. I believe it happens. I believe that it doesn't work. And again, I've talked about you have to draft in all rounds in order to be successful, not just one round. You just can't run away with Connor Bedard and plan your cup parade. But I dropped my pen. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm on a tangent now, but the framing for those that are listening.
Okay, there. Well, you didn't say anything, so I rely on your direction. Gosh,
it's like you're treading water and you're barely above the surface.
Okay, am I better now? Okay,
there we go.
Yeah, way better.
There we go.
Well, someone say something.
Broadcast. I did. I put it in the private chat because I didn't want to do this.
Oh, did you? Oh, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
After you completely disappeared from the screen. It's like, what's going on?
Oh, okay. Well, I missed that. Anyway,
man. Thanks for the levity, though. We needed this.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not a big believer in tanking works. It just you can't. To get back to my point, you're not going to plan your parade when you pick Connor Bedard. It's not the Stanley Cup after, right? So. You still have to draft. And I personally support what Brian Burke suggested, that I think that you should not. I think that if you finish in the bottom 5 2 years in a row, I think that there should be some sort of penalty that you lose lottery odds or something to get the first pick. I don't think you should be allowed to have back-to-back first picks.
You know what the NHL should do? And this would add to HRR, hockey-related revenue. You have a tournament of the teams that don't make the playoffs, and the winner of that tournament gets the best odds. Like that. Come on. Let's do
I don't know
like
if the PA would go for that, but
this is why I did a little bit of a tangent here. This is why the sport of soccer/football is quite interesting, because so many levels of their sport have a tiering and a relegation system, right? So like the teams at the bottom down the stretch have so much to play for, and there is none of this tanking nonsense that goes on. But it's obviously a much different sport. The tournament. That tournament idea where you throw, say, the bottom 4 teams in or something, and you're playing for the first pick is it's an interesting concept. How much viewership it would get would be probably the obstacle to it happening, but
well, and how much motivation would the players have in doing that too,
exactly.
Right?
Well, I mean, if you're playing for a generational talent, if there's
but what if you're a UFA? If you're a UFA, you're not going to be. You may not be on the team with this generational talent. So why am I motivated to help you?
Well, you would hope that their professionalism would be there to, because that's what Gary told us, right? Like the professionalism.
The professionalism,
right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, very cynical.
Yeah. Yeah. I
We'll
mean,
have to workshop that idea a bit.
unless you do like a skills competition or something, or you give a bonus to players if or something.
I would say that there have to be a monetary bonus for the players as well to make that work. Do not go gimmicky with some sort of stupid skills competition.
I mean, hey, you look at the 3-on-3 All-Star game and the monetary component there. That's increase the competitiveness of it. At least when it first came in. That's probably waning now, but yeah, if you do dangle some cash there, that'll usually get people to take it more serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to chat about? Did anything else pop into your?
Just one story to watch would be the Bailey's sports networks
Bally's,
the regional sports networks going towards bankruptcy. I'm not sure if that will affect any HRR, which will affect the cap, which we're hoping to see rise after next season, I believe is what the expectation is now. So I don't know if that will have an effect on it, but that is something to watch.
Definitely, yeah. The Bally Sports Networks have the local broadcast rights to quite a number of NHL teams. Not all of them in the U.S., obviously, and I don't know the exact number, but I would say probably more than not.
Yeah, just looking here. Yeah, the article, one article from Bloomberg is saying that I'm reading from Bloomberg is saying that team payments are at risk, and it's damn pay window. But sorry, the one I looked at it was a pay window, but it's that is a really interesting story. I'm going to be very curious, and I'm surprised they don't have a streaming service.
I'm not up on each team would have different streaming rights deals, I think. So I'm not too clear on how that all works.
Bally doesn't have a streaming app.
Well, there's got to be streaming rights negotiated with the teams too, and I don't know how all that goes down there.
Okay. They do have an app. I know that there's a situation in Colorado that home games are blacked out. For Colorado Avalanche games, home games are blacked out. So I know that's been still a controversy that Denver fans are dealing with. So yeah, I think that I'm going to be interested to watch what happens with that, and that will affect baseball too.
Yes, baseball. It gets more discussion in the context of baseball than the NHL. But same thing there. They do hold the local broadcast rights to quite a large number of MLB teams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good pull, Sean. I forgot about that. I was going to bring it up, but then I forgot. All right, let's leave it there. So we're heading towards the All-Star break. And so we'll have a number of things to argue about, I'm sure, as something will happen. Something will cause some sort of stir. That's what always happens.
Bo Horvat being traded on the eve of the All-Star game.
Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I have not. I'm not the one that I saw that floated out there by somebody on Twitter. And I was like, yeah, how would that work? Would he still be playing for the Pacific Division, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know.
I think he would. Yeah, I think they just would say you got voted in for the Pacific team and you play there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for joining us. And sorry I didn't straighten out my computer until like 99% into the show. Sorry about that. But how do we follow everyone?
I am BearderConnect03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
Chris is Schneid's, SCHNEIDZ. Devin Gordhow09. We will be doing a Flames podcast sometime within this weekend or early next week. So we'll spend some time talking about where the Flames are at. I'm sure
Devin will
that
complain about Daryl Sutter and call him a dinosaur.
Yes.
yes, and I'm sure Flames Twitter, I haven't looked, but I'm sure Flames Twitter is reacting very positively to the fact that they're losing to the Blackhawks right now.
Yeah, and then the content rating will be, more viewer discretion advised for that show.
Yeah. Follow Devin Gordhouse09, Christian Schneids, SCHNEIDZ. Follow the Fireside Podcast as they do Flames podcasts every Monday, and follow me, KEVOLE. And then, of course, Shifts and Pucks Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you very soon. Bye for now. We have to do our wave.